Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Yakuza Fiancé Season 1, Episode 10. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode, and I love the whole thing about Kirishima wanting to like sew up Yoshino's skirt because he's like, yo, what if people can see your underwear or something like that? And it's just like, oh, where'd you get she's like, where you have the needle and thread from? He's like, oh yeah, I got it from like the store and stuff. And it's just, for him, it's just the concern he has for Yoshino. He's like, oh my god, what kind of bastard would do something like this to someone so beautiful as you? And Yoshino's like, oh yeah, I literally had to stop you from literally beating the dude to death. I mean, it's like understandable. Like we saw how Kirishima gets when it comes to people hurting Yoshino. So, but either way, they're sitting down talking to Ozu, and it becomes this conversation of, well, how much does Yoshino know? And it's like, she ends up ultimately talking about, I mean, she kind of basically explains everything, how she found all this stuff out, because she knew about Ozu's like connection to like the place with all the drugs and stuff. She knew about that in Kobe. Kirishima knew, but was never able to track it. The only reason why she was able to track it is she was like staking out for like 5 hours, and she saw a car with Tokyo license plates and followed it, and that led her to them as well as the guys that they had a run into with in episode 2. So she's like, right, she figured like whatever this is all about, this had to be about Kirishima, them getting back at like specifically Kirishima and all that stuff back in episode 2. So for her, it's like, this is kind of all she really knows, I believe is what she was saying at the time. And then Kirishima steps in and talks about what he knows and all of this. Like, Kirishima pulled such a foul move because for him it was a situation of, obviously, like, what's his name? Ozu was kind of saying like, right, I know the type of relationship you have with now. You had one before, and now you're in a relationship again. And Yoshino's like, oh, really? And then he's kind of like, Kirishima's like, But yeah, Ozu's like, yeah, I was just trying to warn her. Basically, being around someone from the Yakuza world and stuff like that. It's kind of because another piece to this that Kirishima was bringing up is kind of like her not understand. Well, I'll go to that later because I was about to say like there's some things she didn't quite understand, and we'll talk about that afterwards. But Kirishima was trying to find dirt on Ozu, and he's like, you are very good at covering your tracks. I cannot find anything to use against you. And the fact of the matter is your parents are pretty squeaky clean too, until this. And he has video of an associate of Kirishima's having sex with Ozu's mom. I was like, that is dirty, because she's like a freelance announcer, and she's going to be a part of something that's coming up soon, and it was going to be her return. Now that she has a son in college, she can go back to focusing on her career, and this would have destroyed that, because I mean, in general, this would have been a big scandal of, oh, you had an affair, yada yada yada. Obviously it's going to be, that's the thing, like I said, universally, I think it'd be a big scandal, but I feel like it'll be even more of a big issue in Asia, specifically Japan and Korea. I feel like it'd probably be the biggest deal in those two respective countries. And this being set in Japan, yeah, that's going to be a massive issue. So it's like, yeah, I could basically destroy your entire world, because he was trying to make a point later on. Ozu's like, oh, I could destroy you guys socially. Like, oh, you're going to try and come after me like that. I think it's interesting that Kirishima, because they bring up the whole honey trap of it all, but it's like, yeah, you honey trapped Ozu's mom. But I was like, that's all kinds of, that's dastardly evil. He's like, no, I didn't do it myself. I sent an associate. But you also couldn't put it past Kirishima to be the type of person that would handle it himself. But I guess for him, it's like, nah, why get involved? Why not, find an associate who might fit Ozu's mom's more like type or whatever. But yeah, like, it's like, cool, now that I have this evidence, you basically have to leave now alone, or this evidence, or this will be used against you. And he's like, oh, I'll destroy you guys socially because, like, I have that power and stuff like that. People like me. He's even saying, I think he'll get the police involved because they're Yakuzas and stuff like that. But then Yoshino's like, okay, try it. Go ahead. Or like, unlike you can't do anything to us like socially. Like you have more in the public eye. You have so much more to lose than we do. We're not in a position. Neither one of us is in a position to lose anything if you try to make your move. So go right ahead. So he tried to Uno reverse, and then he hit Uno reverse, got reversed. So it's like, yeah, go ahead. And so he kind of had to back down. Does not help that now was over there because she showed up with Shoma and ended up recording that conversation. So it's like, cool, got double evidence of you. So it's like, you do not want to do this. So because Kirishima's thing was like, you leave now alone and you never bother her again. I even love like his rebuttal to the guy getting angry. He's like, Ozu, why are you getting mad, buddy? Like, yo, I'm just doing to you what you did to countless other women. I was, like I said, dastardly. And even Yoshino was kind of almost like, well, I think for her, it's like, yo, I wasn't expecting you to go that hard into pain. But she doesn't know the full scale of like, and Kirishima doesn't talk about it, but he also has this vested interest in like screwing you over because they're like some of his victims have been people that Kirishima has been, but Yoshino doesn't know like Kirishima has ties to some of the women he's done this to. So for him, it's like there's a little personal vendetta, but there's also other angles of what he's getting out of this as well. So just thought that whole situation was fascinating. So that's the end of that. And so we split between Shoma going off with Yoshino, who we see that she's been like sneaking around in some truck that she kind of stole, and it's like even Shoma's like, this is not as inconspicuous as you think it is. Like this is actually going to draw way more attention. You're not fitting in. She's like, I kind of didn't really have much of a choice. It's kind of like the one vehicle she could grab onto, so she didn't really have much of a choice. But yeah, it stands out like crazy. But yeah, the thing I was bringing up earlier is she couldn't figure out the heart of this. She feels like there's more to it because she overheard the conversation between that guy who was after Kirishima and Yoshino, where she oh yeah, I did. She completely forgot about the thing she also had against Ozu initially before he tried to say like, I'll destroy you socially. It's for her, it's like, well, no, it might have been part of that conversation where she was like, you actually served me drinks. I turned you down once and you pushed me to drink again. And she's like, actually, I'm underage. She's like, there's no way you're underage. She's like, you bastard, look at my license. It says my birth date and everything, which is so disrespectful of like, there's no way you're underage. You don't look underage. And Yoshino constantly gets shit for her face. Because other people, a few people will compliment her face, but other people says like, she doesn't get compliments on her face, But either way, just I guess it's like her face or whatever looks older, and she acts older than what she really is. Because it's like, yeah, she is a high schooler, so. But either way, tangents and all that aside, going back to the point, she was trying to, because she remembers that conversation Ozu had about like, right, and she brought up like, right. The reason why she thought this was all about those guys coming after Kirishima to get payback, but now she's like, right, what if someone pressured Ozu to pay those guys? Because she thought it was more so like those guys came to Ozu to go after Kirishima, but what if someone paid Ozu to pay these people? And she's like, what could that be about? And Shoma's piecing things together too, because they're all missing a piece to the puzzle, because they don't know about Azami like Kirishima does. Like they're missing that piece to the puzzle of, even Kirishima doesn't have it all figured out because he doesn't know fully. Once again, I brought it up last episode that it has to be Yoshino being some piece on the puzzle to all of this. Like the infighting that red curly haired dude that fought Shoma last episode was talking. Well, last episode and episode before last was talking about the infighting that's coming up, and that actually replayed in Shoma's head when he's thinking about all of this. Because he brings up the fact that he's like, yo, Kirishima's family, it's like they would theoretically look after him, but it's like Ozu's family has ties to the Tokusa group, and it's like there must be some disconnect there if like Ozu or whatever is able to try and come after Kirishima. It's like there's something off there, and both of them are trying to figure it out. So Shoma was like, yo, later on I want you to sit down with me and tell me like all the details, because he's trying to piece it together from the conversation. Because I love the whole thing of, she's like, wow, I've never seen you beat up like this. She's like, was the opponent tough? He was like, nah. And she's like, yeah, this guy totally whooped your ass. And he was like, what did you say? And she's like, I was joking, But because he was obviously upset with her, because he's like, how could you like not tell me what was going on. And it's like, yo, I should have been there. She's like, I'm sorry. She's like, I just never expected Kirishima to drag you into all of this, but it's also like my apologies for kind of going off on my own. So all the while that's happening, we have the conversation between Now and Kirishima where Kirishima's like, yeah, like all that stuff, like that evidence you have won't be enough to necessarily keep Ozu away, but he now knows that messing with you would involve messing with other people, myself included, and that's just a whole headache. He doesn't want to deal with that smoke, so he'll leave you alone. But it becomes this conversation about Yoshino and Nao's perspective on it, because it's like, right, like she sees Kirishima kind of for who he is, like, you know, because he was saying like, right, you should, to prevent any trouble in the future, you need to keep your name out there, keep yourself a very public figure and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, I already kind of knew that. But for her, she talks about Yoshino being like, oh yeah, Yoshino, she's kind of stupid, and it's like also like she's not that pretty. So it's like, I don't get why you're so into her. It's like, based on me and your exes, your taste must have changed. And he was like, honestly, he's like, because he's even asking, he's like, yo, so you told Yoshino, what'd she say about me? Did she say like, you know, I might be a scum, but I seem pretty cool? It's like, no, she called you an acquaintance. It's like, she's like, you should give up on her. Like, I don't know why you're trying to pursue her so heavily. But then Kirishima says like some foul shit where he's basically like, if it's for Yoshino's sake, I will sleep with you. You might be pretty and smart and cute and very good at sex. That basically he could sleep with Now and any other woman and not know their names. Kind of almost, I guess, implying like any of his exes that Now claims to know about were women he doesn't really remember or know. Feels like that. I mean, that's heavily what it implies, to the point now it's like slaps him and it's like, oh, you wanted me to. And I don't know if that was because, well, because I was about to say Yoshino pops up afterwards, but not unless that was meant to be like such a public display of that way in the future. There's like, it's such a public thing that if anyone ever tries to make a stink out of it, like they disconnect the whole her and Kirishima and her thing. Like, I guess that would be the reason. I'm like, what other reason would be to kind of provoke her enough to make her slap you publicly? So yeah, she's kind of like, lose my contacts. He's like, don't worry about it. Immediately after this, I'm going to delete that account so that I'll never be able to get in contact with you. So guess this is the last we'll see of Now for now. Well, maybe ever. Who knows? But either way, some interesting revelations come about between the Kirishima and Yoshino conversation, where they end up ultimately talking about, well, everything that's kind of going down, and it's like how she figured out what she figured out, because like she followed them in that truck, which Kirishima clocked them getting, because he's like, right, this truck was outside like the hotel where for like 5 hours, like at early in the morning, plus it had tinted windows. He knew somebody was following them, he just never would have known it was Yoshino. But also that she ended up connecting a lot of dots, because I forgot, like she knew that Kirishima went to Kobe, but like they didn't know exactly where to look for the whole Ozu connection, and they went to like 3 different places, but one of the places had a lease to it, and it was connected to Ozu, which Ozu was connected to Now, and they went to the same school and everything. That's in fact, she was waiting out, like, you know, trying to, like, she didn't expect to, like, talk to Now and end up finding out there's a Kirishima connection, or maybe she was, and it's, whatever the case may be, that's how she ended up piecing a lot of stuff together. We ultimately end up finding out that she pulled a little bit of a Kirishima, and she was tracking him through the thing that she made for him. I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. Because at the time, I didn't think much of it, that she did kind of go out of her way. It's like he randomly picked one, being like, oh, I want this. And she went out of her way to be like, yo, here's a newer one. So it's like, and she kind of pushed it on him, even though he's like, no, I want the OG. I'm fine with like the more raggedy, older one. But now we know why. She put a tracker in it. And it's like, well, she tracked him, but she even asked, like, aren't you pissed? I mean, she's like, I get it. Like, you tracked me first, but still, like, wouldn't you be upset about that? So thought that was so interesting that it's like, yeah, but he figured out that he was being tracked because he was like, well, like, for you to know I went to Kobe or whatever, he's like, well, the only means you would have been able to track me by was this. He's like, this is the only thing I can think of, I guess, that he had in recent enough history gotten that would have, like, he didn't know for sure, but he had a pretty good idea. But he still kept it. And obviously, like, Yoshino brings up what Tsubaki had told her before. It's like, find out whether or not he's obsessed with her, whether he actually is in love with her. And for her, it's like, you know, to see whether or not you're worth, like, should I come back to Osaka and just kind of leave this all behind? But she's like, what it really comes down to is whether or not you love me or not. And she's like, when it comes down to it, you could have easily just, like, gotten rid of that thing the moment I put it on your keychain. You could have just, like, not kept it, and you still did. And she was like, huh, you must really love me. And for whatever reason, that caught Kirishima off guard. He was almost like, what? And he's like, of course, I tell you that all the time. And she's like, yeah, but it feels like he said, and I think he says it in a way where it's meant to seem so flippant. And it's like, right, you're not sincere, but like her almost sincerely believing that he actually loves her kind of caught him off guard, because he was almost like, oh shit, that kind of caught me off guard. You're taking me at my word. He's like, you normally never would. You kind of assume like it's all bullshit. But he's like, yeah, I'd say it all the time. Like, maybe in his own way, he is being sincere every time he has said it. But that's why I feel like I said, like, he was almost like, oh, like, you never take me seriously. You never believe me when I say that. So for you to say, but she's like, no, like, this time I'm like, you didn't have to keep that thing. But for him, he wanted to, because it was kind of nice. It was something he received from her. So of course he wasn't going to throw it away, you know? He's like, you know, in the long run, he's like, maybe I should have thrown it away if it meant, you know, you potentially getting mixed up in all of this. So, but it's also kind of a thing of it would have all played out this way anyway, considering, once again, he knows this, but she doesn't know that she was the target of all this. Yeah, they use Kirishima as kind of an excuse, but at the end of the day, Yoshino was, and I think Azami's the only one who, well, him and I think Redhead Dude are probably the only ones. Who knows how much Azami's keeping to himself, but they seem to be the only ones that are in the real know. Like Ozu and the other guys, they were all pawns in this. Like Ozu probably really thought it was about Yoshino and Kirishima, not realizing this. Like, no, it's mainly, almost entirely about Yoshino. And then we have our conclusion, which I was like, oh, we went this entire episode not ever going back to it. But I was hoping, I was like, well, I thought we kind of deal with it immediately at the beginning of the episode. But it's like, now we had some other stuff to kind of iron out and stuff like that. But now it comes down to like, cool. So where do we go from here? And she's almost like, what? He's like, yeah, remember our deal? I resolved everything before midnight. And she was almost like, of course I didn't remember that. Because she almost said it like, sure, whatever. But then she's also kind of like, I wasn't expecting you to remember that, because I barely remembered it, because everything like that happened in that span of time, but everything that went down last episode made me forget about it. So he's like, oh, I guess it's kind of official now, we're dating. She's like, all right, how about rock, paper, scissors? We'll settle it with that. Because for her, it's like, I can't beat you through physical means, and you're on a different level when it comes to mind games. But this, I'm pretty good at rock, paper, scissors, and it comes down to luck, and I'm pretty good and I'm pretty lucky. So she does her thing, and she's thinking about it, which I think is probably her issue, is she's overthinking it, because she's like, all right, rock is what people throw out immediately. Typically, that's what people always go through with for their first date. But she's like, so I should throw out paper, but because Kirishima would know something like that, of course he's going to go with paper himself. So scissors is what I should go out with. And she's like, yeah, I got this. And he picks rock. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing picking rock? Why would you do that? He's like, yeah, I won. I guess we're dating now. And she's like, no. How about 2 out of 3? You know, and he's like, okay. And they do it again. And she's like, why are you picking rock again? He's like, well, I guess it's settled then. So I love that so much. I thought that was so fascinating. Because I'm sure for Kirishima, I wonder, did he leave that to luck? Or did he know, like, he plays enough mind games of his own where he's like, I know Yoshino, she would so overthink this, so it's easy. Because she's probably like, right, there's no way he'd pick rock 2 times in a row. And it's like, he did. Because that's why I'm like, I don't, like, he is just crazy enough to be him to just be like, no, I'm actually pretty lucky, and I just let the cards lie where they went. But it's also like he is smart and crafty and sly enough that it could be a thing of he's like, no, I can read Yoshino like a book to some extent, and I know her personality. She's definitely going to overthink this. So whatever the case may be, kind of a neat resolution to that whole situation. I love that it came down to rock, paper, scissors, but I'm curious to see like the continuation for that going forward. But then we have the ending where I think it's Azami reaching out, being like, oh yeah, he was there, I guess referencing Kirishima, and maybe. Or maybe it's in reference, maybe it wasn't even Kirishima, maybe it was like, well, because I wasn't paying attention to the phone call, I wasn't paying attention to the voice. I don't know if that was Kirishima talking to Home Dude or whether that was Azami talking to Home Dude about Kirishima or vice versa. But it turns out, well, the person they were talking to, I think it's the dude that Yoshino and Kirishima's grandfather have history with, that guy. We've seen him pop up like one or two times, and obviously he was in some of those older photos and stuff. But like, as I was like, I don't know, because I brought that up previously of like, is he the one that was backing Azami, and Azami takes his orders for what purposes? I mean, I'd assume this has something to do with the past, considering that guy's got history. I mean, he's in the intro, but he's also like, because both Azami and the blonde-haired guy that has ties to Yoshino and Kirishima's grandfathers. I'm curious, like, what that's about. Like, what... I mean, the way he plays it in the intro, where just like, he looks like he's kind of like a very suspicious person, so you're just kind of like, I'm curious to see what role he was going to play. And like I said, he's popped up, like, I think... in the actual episodes itself, I think he's only been in one episode so far, so I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see. Like I said, I should have gone back because I wasn't sure who he was talking to. It sounded like it might have been Azami. I don't think it was. It didn't sound like Kirishima, so I'm assuming it was Azami. That's who Azami's reporting to. But for what purpose? Once again, Redhead was like, "Yo, there's gonna be some infighting coming up soon." So. Something else I had also forgot to talk about was that conversation too, where they kind of got I forgot what was the precursor to the conversation, because it was during that whole conversation about, like those revelations between Yoshino and Kirishima, but it was basically him. I think once again I think it might have been after the conversation where she was talking about like, right, you must really love me or something, and he looked at her and he was basically. He's like, I could take one hand and I could just squeeze your skull. And then he's just like, but he's touching her face and saying like, and he touches her neck and she's like, I forgot what he said, but like at one point he's just like, I want to kind of like, I could love you. And then like the next moment, I feel like I want to mess you up. And at first I was almost looking at it like, there's that cute overload thing that people have. Like, oh my God, this thing is so cute. I want to just squish its head type of thing. That's what I almost wondered if that's what he was going for. And I love that Yoshino was like, oh, like I would rather you like cherish me. Like if we could go with that option and not the other option, I'd totally be fine with that. So something like that. I just don't remember what it was. And he just kind of immediately... like, he just kind of went a little dark there for a moment. So I don't know if that's what that's supposed to be. I think it's just for him, it's like, there's something inside of me that could either love you or, like, use you up and wreck you in a very fucked up way. It feels like that's kind of the vibe he was, like, that's how I interpreted that. But he immediately was just kind of like, okay, but I'm perfectly fine with just simply loving you. I was like, ugh. Even, like I said, even she was kind of like, no, I'm perfectly fine with you kind of loving me. I'd rather take that over the ladder of you, like, I don't know, the darker shit you were just talking about. So I just thought that was something interesting that I forgot to talk about. Because what actually sparked that is because, like, on YouTube, on the Crunchyroll page, that particular scene, that section of the scene is like they cut that out as a clip. So I think that's what, like, sparked me to be like, oh yeah, I also wanted to talk about that. I actually completely forgot about that and wouldn't have talked that if I hadn't come across that scene on, just seeing it, like, on YouTube. Either way. Tangent on that side. Just wanted to add that in. We'll have to wait to see where this all goes, how this all plays out going forward into the next episode, which should be like the penultimate episode of the season. There are only 12 episodes, so I'm excited to see how this all plays out next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.